This is a podcast about all things health and wellbeing with me, Ask Elizabeth, counsellor, health advocate and blogger. Join me as we get to know these guests and learn about how they implement health, wellbeing and self-care practices into their lives. Welcome to Unearthing Wellbeing with Ask Elizabeth, where our greatest wealth is health. Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of Unearthing Wellbeing. This next guest is V8 Supercar Racer Emily Duggan. Emily made her debut in the racing scene back in 2014 as the first female driver in Series X3. She has gone from leaps to bounds in her industry, competing in the Toyota 86 series and Supercars Super3 series. We spoke about how the flame ignited in her to pursue this career path and how she was forced to recover from burnout during the pandemic, which just touched the surface of our conversation. Now, here is Emily Duggan. Hi, Emily. Thank you so much for saying yes to being on Unearthing Wellbeing. It's much appreciated. How are you today?
Yeah, going good. I'm in some fresh new air in Port Macquarie and out of Melbourne lockdown. So I'm absolutely loving life at the moment.
Oh, amazing. And is this your last pit stop for 2020?
Yeah, it will be. I'll be spending Christmas here and New Year's here. So I can see the beach and see the ocean. So it's perfect way to end such a hectic 2020.
Oh, amazing. I'm hoping to get down to the beach too over the summer. So I'm very envious of you right now. And definitely a good way to wrap 2020 up in a nice bow, per se.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, for those who don't know, you tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a racing car driver, or this year it kind of feels like I'm just been home bumming around with everything that's been happening. But usually I am a racing car driver. I started racing probably about 6 years ago, almost 7 years ago. So I got into it just for the love of driving cars, and I'm a competitive person as well. So it kind of goes hand in hand. And I've been absolutely loving the career and chasing my dream ever since.
Oh, that's amazing. And the fact that you've been able to make a passion of yours a career is fantastic and so inspirational.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's really important. I mean, it's everyone has a different passion. So whatever you're passionate about, if you can be doing that every single day or working towards it every single day, I think that that's a really important thing to be doing, because remember, we don't have very long on this earth, so you got to make the most out of it while you can.
I love that, and that's a really good take home. Yeah. I guess like for someone who is always behind the wheel racing, describe to us what it feels like.
Oh, good question. It feels to me it feels right. It feels like I'm home, because that's exactly where I want to be. But going at speeds of around 270, braking for a corner, it's real heavy braking, so you push forward in the seat, but you've got obviously the harness on as well, so holding you there. It's pretty tough on your body. So physically, you don't need to be a bodybuilder, weightlifter to be able to do it. But it's strain on your body, and then mentally, I feel like when I'm racing, that's probably the most when I'm most clear, because you're just thinking about what's happening at the time. But it's a whole lot of fun. If anyone's driven on the freeway or highway and gone 110 k's and like, sped up a little bit to overtake someone. It's kind of that feeling multiplied by 1,000.
Oh my God, that's amazing. And it sounds like it's really invigorating.
Yeah, it certainly is.
What makes, so I guess that is one that leads me to my next question, in terms of what makes you happy and fills your cup. So I'm assuming that definitely does. And besides that, what else fills you with happiness and makes you thrive?
I think the racing cars definitely fills me with happiness. I mean, there's obviously hurdles that come with chasing your dream and all that stuff. But on a day-to-day feeling happy, knowing that I'm going after what I want and the dream that I've chosen to pursue, even on those days where it's difficult and you've got a lot of obstacles that you need to overcome, knowing that once you get over those obstacles, and you will, that still brings you happiness. But then also being next to the beach and being in Melbourne, stuck in lockdown and indoors, that was a bit not a fun time. But day-to-day things, going to the beach, working out, having a coffee in the morning. Oh, I love a coffee in the morning. It's those small little things that if you enjoy something and it's not hurting anyone, then you just need to do it every single day.
Oh, 100%. And it's funny that you say that, because in those moments where you're deprived of just the small things in life that we've all taken for granted at some point, is when we want it most and when we appreciate those things.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like some people can get caught up, and I know that certainly myself in lockdown, I got caught up. I wanted to go to the beach. I'm originally from Sydney and I got stuck in Melbourne. So I wanted to get back to Sydney. I wanted to get back to the beaches. And you kind of, you can get stuck. You wake up one morning, you're just like, oh, it's never going to end. But to understand that, nothing's forever, nothing lasts forever. So to enjoy the moment, and you find different things. I mean, in lockdown, I've never really been one to sit in front of the TV and just watch, Netflix and stand movies and episodes endless. But I woke up and I was like, that's what makes me happy for this day in this situation, was having a morning coffee and then just lounging on the couch, watching Netflix TV.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what? You just have to, I think, always follow your gut and your mind and your heart in those respects, because if you're not making yourself happy and doing things for yourself, then what's the point?
Exactly. And I think that we can get so caught up in watching other people's lives, especially on social media. We're all guilty of it. And seeing, in this lockdown period, there were so many people saying, oh, this is the time where you should get healthy. This is the time where you should be reading the books and, starting a business and doing all that. Where for me, I would see that and I'd be like, oh, I just want to chill and relax. So it's just kind of knowing that what makes you happy in a certain situation is not the same as someone else.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And for someone like you who's got that busy schedule and normally prior to COVID,
yeah,
and racing, and you've been in the industry for over 6 years, as you've said, so there might be some downtime, but generally speaking you're always on the go. So I think from what it sounds like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you enjoyed this period of time where you could actually sit down and relax.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I mean, again, there were some days where I didn't love it, but I haven't had a holiday in the 6 years. I've been working nonstop. My career is not something that's come easily. So I've always been thinking about what I want to be doing next, thinking about the next sponsor to chase, thinking about the next track day that I need to organize the car for and myself for. So to be honest, having this whole year as doing absolutely nothing, and the fact that racing and a lot of sport for so many people really just kind of stopped, and especially in Melbourne, it really did stop. And by the time it got started again in other states, it was kind of like, well, not really it didn't have that competitive edge. There were some people that were, who were able to do it, were still doing it, but majority of us kind of written off the year. So I really enjoyed just having a year. I wouldn't say a year of a holiday because it wasn't necessarily a holiday, but a year off to really think about my career and the next step, and what to plan for the future.
Yeah, sounds like it was a really good time for reevaluation.
Yeah, definitely.
And I guess, like you were saying to me prior to this podcast, that you have restarted in terms of the career and racing. So what has it been like recommencing?
Yeah, it's been good. The last year and a half has been pretty tough in racing, just behind the scenes, that I haven't been very vocal about. Yeah. So to kind of get back that passion, because when you're chasing after your passion, it almost feels like not necessarily a chore, but it can kind of go down that path. Yeah. So say if you're, you want to get fit and healthy and you go to the gym, you usually love going to the gym, but when you feel like you're slogging away for a certain target, it then can almost become like a chore and you don't really want to go. Yeah. So towards the end of last year, it was almost becoming like a chore. So to have that break, reconnect with the passion, everyone goes through it. It's not just a one-person thing.
Oh, of course.
So yeah, to reconnect, and now driving, just everyday driving of a car, I absolutely love. People are so funny. They always say, oh, if I've driven, 45 minutes to an hour to get somewhere, then everyone's always amazed of, oh wow, that's a long drive. But for me, that's quite short. So yeah. It's the thrill of driving again has ignited.
That's beautiful, and it sounds like that passion of yours has reignited. So I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah, thank you.
So with that, and we've been talking about how busy your schedule can be, how do you incorporate self-care and how do you manage it?
With such a busy schedule, it's the small little things that you can do. So my morning coffee, I love a morning coffee, and whether I make it myself or if I go to a cafe, I preferably like to go to a cafe. And then if just going for a walk with your headphones on, after, like in the afternoon to night, it's those probably two small things that make a huge impact in my day and really bring me back to kind of, earth and ground me and keep me happy. Without those things, it can get a little bit hectic.
Oh, for sure. And what do you listen to in those times that you're able to plug in?
Oh, it can be a little bit of everything. It depends on the day and the mood. Either lately during lockdown, it's been a little bit of 90s and 2000s throwback movies. So, music. So it's a bit of Mariah Carey, which I've been loving. Or it's just a podcast, but a podcast on things that I've got no idea about, and I love learning new things and hearing people's different perspectives on life or on a certain thing that I've got no idea about, and you can kind of get a little insight into what someone else's life or hobby is.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, sounds like you love learning, and it's a great way of tuning out, per se.
Yeah, correct. Because you're not so focused on, I can get very focused on one thing. I'm very headstrong and stubborn. So it's kind of, like bull charging at a red flag when I want something. So to kind of disconnect from that and hear people talking about something else, but also I feel like everything has a lesson in it. So if you're hearing about someone talking about, starting up a record label or something, and then they might go through a few obstacles that you can kind of link to an obstacle that you're going through, and then hearing how they've overcome it, you go, oh, that's like a new idea or a new strategy to overcome something. So you can learn from yourself and you can learn from other people as well.
Definitely. And I think there's a lot of take homes from listening to people who you don't normally associate with or listen to.
Yeah, definitely. Because we've all got our own knowledge, and when you share knowledge, in any way, through a podcast, through blogs, through YouTube, through music, it gives you the information that you might not have obtained otherwise.
Yeah, for sure. When you're, I guess, busy with work and you go from working and then straight to bed, for example, without that self-care, even though sleep is self-care in itself, say, for instance, you're not listening to music at the end of a busy day, how do you feel during those times?
Yeah, my mind runs like a steam train. It just continues to go, and I have a really bad sleep. And then, of course, as anyone would know, if you have a bad sleep and a restless sleep, you wake up the next morning, the coffee, it just kind of tips the iceberg in getting you kind of, back to normal. So it's that restless sleep. But also, on another flip side, you can sometimes come up with your best ideas at 1 o'clock at night. However, it's trying to quickly write that down and then get back to it. But I've got a sleep app that I use that tells me bedtime stories like a little kid.
I love it.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's interesting. I just kind of when I was working for Woolies, I had 2 jobs, a desk job in the day, and then I'd go to Woolies at night. So Woolies was 5 to 12, and the desk job was 8:30 to 4:30. Wow. So it was a really quick kind of changeover. But because you work until 12, you're still kind of
wired.
You're still kind of wired. So I got that app during that time, and I've kept it ever since, because it just really helps to relax if you haven't had a chance to go for a walk or to kind of wind down a little bit.
Oh, amazing. And for those listening, what is this app called?
Oh, it is called Headspace.
Oh,
so it's a little orange round circle.
Yeah.
And it's subscription. I think this is the only subscription app that I've ever paid for, but it's 100% completely worth it.
It's funny you say that, because in a post of mine previously, I recommended utilizing that app. So there you go.
Perfect plug.
We were talking about self-care and how you manage times where you can't do that. Have you ever experienced burnout, and how do you deal with it?
Yeah, definitely. How do I avoid it? I don't think I have an answer, because I think the first time I got burnout was at the end to beginning of this year. So I can't really tell you how to avoid it, because I kind of crashed right into it.
Yeah.
but what was the other part of the question? Sorry.
That's okay. So I said, have you ever experienced burnout, and how do you deal with it?
Oh, okay, yeah. So how I dealt with it. I think the world kind of shutting down was a little bit of a blessing for me to kind of experience burnout in, between November, December to January, February. So I almost, like, you had to kind of stop and shut down yourself and kind of, be in that lockdown situation. But if that didn't happen, to be quite honest, I'd probably still be burnt out. So I'd still be running in that fight or flight type of mentality.
Yeah.
Just to be completely honest, rather than just making up something of how I got over it. But for me, it was being forced to stop everything, and I guess taking a holiday. If someone said, listen, you have to take a 2-week holiday, you can't have any laptop, you can't have any phone or anything, and you have to have 2 weeks, then I feel like that would also have helped me get out of that burnout phase and just kind of relax. I feel like your phone, well, definitely my phone, is so much a part of you. And I mean, there's social media apps, they're so handy just to kind of look into. And I feel like that's kind of sometimes definitely a contribution to my burnout, because I see other people achieving things that possibly I want to achieve, and you start questioning yourself, oh, I'm not doing enough to get there. So then you kind of push yourself harder. So a forced break and realizing that you are actually in burnout stage, I think that's realizing that you are in it. I think that's the key point, in order to then be able to get over it.
Yeah. And it's being honest with yourself.
Yeah, 100%. So because you've got everyone's voice in your head, it can sometimes be a little bit difficult to find what your voice is actually saying. And I guess that goes back to your gut instinct. Your gut. I've recently just done a juice cleanse and all that stuff to kind of help with gut instinct, or not with gut instinct, but it goes back to that feeling of trust your gut. You've gone through experiences, so your voice and your knowledge sometimes is more correct, or usually more correct, than the other person. So if you've told someone else a situation, they might have never been in it, but they're not telling you that they've never been in it. They're just giving you advice. So when it comes to that you've actually sat in that situation, your advice might actually be the best advice to listen to.
Yeah, 100%. And it's basically empathy. So if you're able to empathize with someone, it means that you've gone through a similar situation to them, and you can guide them to hopefully a better place. Or on I guess on the flip side to that, we sometimes do the best healing when it's on our own and we're investigating why we're feeling like this, what's making us do certain things and in certain ways and feel, different things to others. Like, I think social media is both a blessing and a curse, because we aren't in the mentality that we understand that everyone's different. And although it's great to aspire and get inspiration off others, what we see on social media isn't exactly what is, I guess, a genuine lifestyle of a person. They're only showing us what they want us to see. And in most cases, it's just the perfect / happy points. It's not the blunders that they face, the hills that they have to climb over to get to a sunnier horizon per se. And
Exactly. And isn't it funny that we all know that social media isn't real, and I say that inverted commas for exactly how you explained it, yet I still find myself looking at it going, oh, that, that's perfect.
Yeah.
So everyone knows it, but no one's kind of, I find myself not actually, what's that saying? Taking my own advice.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I have been like that 100%. And I know a lot of people have, like, and I think once this is released, people will be nodding and agreeing with us and saying, yeah, that's me, because no one's immune to that. But I think a handy tip is, if you don't want to feel shame, guilt, and just those yucky feelings, you unfollow those people, and you follow people who lift you up and inspire you in a positive way. Because if we're always, I guess, idolizing those people in the limelight, or people who are, this is just a well-rounded word, but I guess like bigger than us, and celebrities, for instance, they're our, I guess, our way of dealing with things are going to be different to others, and it might not be realistic goals that we're setting for ourselves. Like, we're not going to be the next Kim K just overnight, for instance. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly, that's it. And you see people with, oh, I've just bought my 5th house, and you think, oh wow, 5th house, like, they must be doing really good for themselves. But in reality, they've now got 5 mortgages. So they have to work. They're stuck in their job, whatever they're doing, to be able to make those mortgages work. So it's so true. I mean, I don't show the all the stuff and the heartache that I've been through, because one, I feel like it's I don't really want to share that, not because it's I only want people to see the bright side, but it's, some people go through personal things that they don't want to share. So it's
Fair enough.
So you can kind of understand why everyone wants to show their, perfect life, but nothing's perfect.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you're able to look, it's up to the person whether they want to share those really grueling moments and the hardship. Not everyone, because like that can be triggering in itself. Like, you need to have a warning if you choose to upload those things. And yeah, kudos to those people who can be really honest and raw and just put that on social media. But I think everyone has trepidations about that, and it can be very confronting. Plus, it's like airing your dirty laundry to the entire world, and who really wants that?
Exactly, that's it. And it's one of those things that if you don't want it on there for, forever, then not willing to put it up. But one of the tips that I do for not always checking my social media is I've actually taken the apps out of my home screen. So I put it on one of the furthest screens that I have. So I've got to go through about 5 screens to get to Instagram and Facebook, just so that they're kind of, that whole out of sight, out of mind thing.
Yes, that's a good idea. I've just turned off my notifications for those apps, even though it can be tempting to, I must say, it can be tempting to go onto those apps because you haven't heard from them, and there's no notifications coming to you. You check on them sometimes too often. But I think times are when we're doing absolutely nothing and we're bored out of our minds too.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like a magazine. I mean, back in the day, you would buy a magazine and you'd flip through all the pages because you see, I mean, I was a sucker. I never read anything, but I would always flip through things to see visually, get that visual fix. So it's the same with Instagram when everything's all photos. You just want that visual hit, so you can just find yourself scrolling just for the sake of scrolling.
Me too. And I think a lot of people got addicted to that with TikTok.
Oh, yeah, I got addicted. I'm now over my addiction. That was, I can say I was addicted to it.
Yeah, me too. I was like, shit, it's been an hour and I've just been scrolling through videos. I'm like, I need to remove myself from this app because it's just malproductive.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so funny. And like, I guess, yeah, as I said before, a lot of people can relate to those periods of time. And like everyone, going back to that question about burnout, like we are going to, I guess, deal with burnout in very different ways, and how we avoid it. Sometimes we can't, and it just hits you like a ton of bricks when it happens because you're just on the go and you don't realize that you're getting those moments of adrenal fatigue or anything else that can happen to you during burnout. So, yeah, I guess it's just really important to make sure you're utilizing whatever works for you in terms of self-care, whether that be listening to music with podcasts, sleep, going for a walk, exercising. I think over this time, especially for us Melburnians, we have worked out what works for us for self-care, hopefully anyway. And
yeah, definitely those last couple of weeks in the second lockdown, you kind of found yourself, breathing a bit more and kind of being like, yeah, this isn't that bad.
yeah,
Hopefully we don't have a third one, but I feel like if we did have a third one, we've sorted it out now.
yeah, fingers crossed anyway.
Yeah.
I guess like you've told us a little bit about what a day in your life looks like, but how would you incorporate holistic health, and that includes eating as well, in a busy day? So when you're actually working, tell us from start to finish what that looks like for you.
So it's, I feel like it's all has to reference back to last year, because I just feel like this whole year's kind of been in lockdown. So for what a day usually looks like, would be getting up, stopping off at a cafe and getting that coffee, and that walk from your car to the cafe, grabbing the coffee and then jumping back in the car, that's a bit of like joy and happy for me. And then going to work, sitting at a desk, but then make sure I got outside for lunch. That was the number one thing. If I'm stuck in a office or a house for the whole day and not seeing, a bit of sunshine or getting that fresh air, that's really important. And then you can tell from the way or the products that you eat. I don't do really that well on dairy. So if I eat dairy yesterday, then I'd feel really sluggish today. But it's understanding, what those food groups are that give you that happiness, gives you balance, or goes completely off the scale into the other direction of making you sluggish, making you feel like you're not being productive and stuff like that. So foods can definitely have, for me, a really big impact on my mental health and mindset. And then going from one work to the next work, I know this sounds really simple, but putting on in my car for that short drive from one workplace to the other, putting on some banger music that, pumps you up for the next, work. I'm working, a 6-7 hour shift. So that was like the little time to, instead of having a little, kip or snooze, you kind of use that time to pump yourself up. So it's those little things that kind of can help get you through the day and kind of, keep that mindset on the right track. And then it was about working at Woolies, and then 12 o'clock came, and then it's the drive home and listening to someone tell me a good night story.
I love that. And with everyone's got a different transition into work and then leisure, and it's important that you've noted that you need to work out what works for you, especially even with eating. It's simple. It sounds simple, but it isn't, because everyone's got a different pathway. And as you were talking about before with your cleanse and stuff like that, your gut is your second brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not feeding yourself properly and nutritious foods, you're going to feel the after effects and the damage that it's done the next day or that later that night. So I think fuel for thought kind of thing, and your ability to tune out but also G up extra work and stuff like that with music is fantastic.
And I think I always thought, when I read about holistic health and all this stuff, I remember for a week I was consciously I would eat something or I'd do something, and then I'd kind of almost pause and be like, oh, did that make me happier? Did that make me sadder? And I was kind of thinking about it way too much. So how to kind of figure out what works for you is with the car and the music thing. I drove to work one day, and there was just kind of, radio, talkback radio, nothing kind of it was just a normal day. But then on the radio the next day, there was a real good song. It was my favorite song. And while I was in that moment, I was like, oh, this I've got a smile on my face. I'm singing and dancing in my car. And it's just kind of switched oh, this is what I like. This is what I want to feel every day going from one workplace to the next.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily about, trying to focus on exactly what it is. It's just listening to your body and just picking up on those small little things, with, eating dairy. I'd had, I'm a massive chocolate lover. So I'd have chocolate all the time. And then one day I didn't have any chocolate. And you woke up the next day and you kind of just had that little bit more of a boost. And that kind of went for a week without chocolate. And I felt, incredible by the 7th day. So don't force yourself to find out these things. They'll come naturally to you when the time's right.
100%. And I think if you're, it's just a exploration of yourself, and just don't force it. You see what works for you, and you'll notice those moments of glee and energy when you least expect it.
Yeah, exactly. Glee. I love that word. That's so what it was.
I think during these times we really need to grab hold of those experiences and those emotions and hold on to them for as long as we can.
Yeah, exactly. And they all transform into different situations. So at home in lockdown, it was, okay, no one's around. I'm in the house by myself. Turn up those bangers and just dance by yourself. It sounds, you might feel weird, and make sure all the curtains are closed so that no one can see you. But it's those small things that, it gets you energized.
Yeah, I love it. And I do the exact same thing. So I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Oh, good.
I guess because this is, it's a podcast about unearthing our well-being and learning from each other, educating one another about how we can make ourselves happier, fulfill our goals. And for someone like you who's an F1 driver, and you've also had those experiences where you've been working back to back in different industries just to make a living, but also fulfill your passions in life. for those people who have big goals, and what are your tips for those people?
As soon as you find your passion and what really ignites that flame inside, I always talk about how I found, motorsport for me was in a very young age. I remember watching it on the TV, and it was like a lighter was trying to spark up in front of me. It didn't have, a lot of, I don't know what the liquid is, but let's call it fuel. It didn't have a lot of fuel inside the lighter, but it was trying to spark. And then I realized, then unfortunately I was not wise enough to question things being that young. I saw all guys racing. So I just thought, it was a guy's sport and girls didn't do it. It wasn't until I was older, and I was actually watching a movie and it had a car chase in it. And that same spark was trying to spark again. And I thought, that's possibly what I want to do. I think that's it. So when I got into a car and raced around a racetrack, that lighter sparked and actually lit the flame, and it was so big. And that's when yes, that's what I need to be doing for the rest of my life. It was tough though in the beginning. I researched for probably about 2 years. So it wasn't that I just went out and bought a car straight away. I researched, I thought about it a lot. I started questioning and asking some friends, like, what do you think of this? Unfortunately, a lot of friends weren't really supportive. They said, that's something that you can't really do. People start when they're 6 years old or 7 years old in karting, and I wasn't 6 or 7 years old by that stage. So it took me 2 years to actually bite the bullet and say, you know what, I don't care what anyone else thinks. This is my life. I can live it how I want to live it. And as long as I'm not hurting anyone, then why not do what it is that I want to do? So that's when I went out and purchased a race car. I saved up during that time, purchased a race car and started racing. So research, exactly once you've found your passion, research is really key because knowledge is power. And then don't be too hard on yourself if it takes you a while to put your plan into action, but certainly have a plan to then be able to put it into action and then just absolutely put that foot to the floor and go chase it.
Oh, I love that. And I apologize for saying F1. It's V8.
No, that's okay. I was like, oh, I've been upgraded.
And you know what? I think with what you just said, it's important to note that if you're getting those thoughts, and it's not just one thought that just pops into your head once in your lifetime, but if you keep considering that and it keeps popping up into your head, regardless of all the negative and the non-supportive people that are there, stuff it. Just go for what you want, and you will see, like, whether it's successful or not, it's a learning experience and it's a learning curve. And for you, like, it's been successful, and as your Instagram says, your hashtag, everything is possible.
100%, because nothing is impossible. How to make the impossible possible is a quote from, I can't remember where I got it from, but it's how to make the impossible possible. Start with what you know, use what you have, and the rest will follow.
Yeah.
And I'm huge on quotes. But that's something that I thought, okay, how the hell do I start racing and be competitive when I don't know how to race? I don't know anything about motorsport or mechanics. I just had this passion to start. But I read something today, and it's 100% true. And I think that this is really, it should resonate with anyone that thinks that there's something more than just the whole go to work, find a boyfriend, find a girlfriend, get married, have kids type of life. So I'll read it out. So 100 trillion million people have lived and died on Earth. 99.999% of these people have been lost to history. Soon we will all join these forgotten people. Stop living your life trying to impress others, as nobody is going to remember you anyway.
Oh my God.
So that, I read that and I was like, yes, 100%, because as long as you're not hurting anyone, your life, you're only on this planet for, such a little small amount of time. And why not do what you want to do? There's no reason why you can't be a scientist, or you can't do anything, be a surfer. I don't know, anything. There's no reason why you can't do it.
That quote gives me all the feels. Like, I'm both sad, but it resonates with me because, yeah, you just fill your cup so it's overflowing. Do what sings to your heart. Do everything that you want to do in life, because you're not living it for anyone else but yourself. So, as selfish as this might sound, make yourself happy, and there will be a flow-on effect to others around you.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
It's been amazing to have you on, and I really appreciate the time that you've taken out of your busy schedule to say yes to this podcast. So thank you so much for that.
Absolutely my pleasure. I've loved this chat. It's been so insightful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, I guess for anyone who's wanting to give you a follow or get in contact with you, where can we find you?
So I've got a website, emilyduggan.com.au, or Instagram, Emily Duggan 1, or Facebook, Emily Duggan Official.
And for those of you who have loved listening to this episode, make sure you give Emily a follow. You're kicking the expectations of the racing world to this curb, and you're forging a path for yourself and inspiring other women out there to fulfill their goals and just do whatever they want to do in life. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, thank you for the kind words.
You're welcome. I hope you liked listening to my conversation with Emily. She is so inspirational. And if you only take one thing from this episode, I would say it would be to follow your heart and don't let anyone dull your flame. To ensure Ask Elizabeth and Unearthing Wellbeing continues to grow, please subscribe and rate the podcast. Feel free to also share and tag us on your socials. I hope you have a lovely day. Be safe and be kind. Take care.